We continue our exploration of the pre-acquisition phase of compliance role in M&A work by looking at evaluating program and culture. Compliance tip of the day. This is the podcast where we bring you daily insights and practical advice on navigating the ever-evolving landscape of compliance requirements. Whether you're a seasoned compliance professional or just starting your journey, my aim in this podcast is to provide you with a bite-sized, actionable tip to help you stay on top of your compliance game. And now I'd like to say a few words about the latest podcast on the Compliance Podcast Network, AI Today in 5 with 5. Thrilled to announce the inaugural episode of my latest podcast series, AI Today in 5. I wanted to do a short, curated set of stories and news stories about AI for the compliance professional and the greater business professional. You can check it out on Megaphone, the Compliance Podcast Network, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple, or wherever great podcasts are listened to. Check out AI Today in 5. Mergers and acquisitions has long been a fertile ground for FCPA enforcement actions, literally going back to the first decade of this century. And here in 2025, we're still having them. So this week, we're going to take a deep dive into the pre-acquisition phase of M&A work. So how and why should you evaluate a potential acquisition candidate's compliance program and culture? A key lesson from FCPA enforcement actions involving M&A is the need to not only evaluate a company's business operation, but also its corporate culture and compliance program, or indeed lack thereof. So culture is going to be significant in multiple areas. Obviously, if you have a culture that is based on doing business ethically and in compliance, that's someone you would want to take a serious look at least from the compliance perspective. But if it's someone who has a culture that's antithetical to your company, that could be a red flag in and of itself before we even get to the culture or culture of doing business ethically and in compliance. In addition to looking at culture, you need to look at the compliance program. How long have they had a best-in-class or first-class compliance program? Are they relatively new to the party, say post-pandemic, or have they had one in place for 15 years? Do they have a chief compliance officer? What is the background of the chief compliance officer? Is it someone they just threw in the role who has no experience with compliance? The old joke would be coach sent down to run HR and now sent down to run in compliance. Or do they have a true compliance professional who's a member of multiple organizations and has compliance certification, or perhaps buys my books on compliance and uses those as guidelines? If you do minimal compliance or you determine there's minimal compliance structures in place, this could raise red flags that would need or suggest further investigation. If you overlook or don't give sufficient weight to these issues and you don't document what you did to clear any red flags, I think can be very serious for you and potentially having issues after the acquisition is closed. As a compliance professional, you must review the target's existing policies and procedures to assess their accuracy. I think it's important to interview key personnel at the target to understand how those policies are implemented and are they really followed going forward. And you need to examine the company's culture to see if ethical business practices are truly embedded into day-to-day operations. In other words, do they actually walk the walk of compliance, or does the CEO simply talk a good game and it doesn't come fruition in practice? So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, review. You need to review policies and procedures and test them to see if they're followed. 2, interview. Interview key personnel, both in compliance and sales and operations. And then 3, assess. Assess the target's culture going forward. happy to do for you, the compliance profession, is if you have a question or a series of questions you would like some compliance tips on, I'm happy to take any requests that you might want, certainly anonymize them, and give you a quick tip. Either one quick tip or maybe a week's worth of quick tips. So if you have any tips you want about your compliance program, you can shoot me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This podcast was created and produced with the assistance of AI.